We are one day away from the NFL Draft. This is the PHLY Eagles Show presented by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. I'm Zach Berman. I am here with the ALLCITY NFL Draft expert, Fran Duffy, who can give you so much information but can't add 4 hours to the day. So he is jam-packed every single day, the busiest man at the company. Fran, instead of asking you how you are, because we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to ask you, who was the last player you watched?
I haven't watched a new player since yesterday, so it's still Justin Wally. It's been more information gathering and writing. My final big board is just about done. I'm finishing up formatting on that, so that should be up on allphly.com. Become a diehard, as always. Take advantage of the sale. I will say we said on the show yesterday that Dallas, the DLLS crew, they were right on our tails, and they have overtaken PHLY as the leader during the sale for new diehards. So if you are watching us right now, just know, if you have decided that you're not going to become a diehard and take advantage of this sale, Philly is losing to Dallas because of you. So if you want to change that, you've got some time here over the next couple days or so.
Yeah, I never use this term because of my objectivity, but I will use it now. Beat Dallas, right? So let's beat Dallas here. And this here, it's a good illustration to kind of the dual part of Fran Duffy's life, because he's a preeminent draft analyst across the network. But there's a big segment of fans in Philly who know Fran from his work with the Eagles, who've been watching him, listening to him for a long time. So for 1 hour, we get to have Fran focus on what the Eagles will do, which is a treat to our audience. It's a treat to us. And that's what today's show is. It is a 7-round Eagles mock draft. Very original idea, but no, we've been talking about it. Eagles have 8 picks, and unlike yesterday, we can be as creative as we want with this. There can be trades. You can project trades. You can we can manipulate things however we want them to go, and we can also get into conversation about the mock draft process too, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. And so as Fran and I discussed yesterday, we are going to go round by round here. So we're not going to do the entire, Fran's picks and then my picks. We're going to go round by round. So let's start with round 1. The Eagles, of course, have the 32nd overall pick. Fran Duffy, what are the Eagles doing at number 32 overall?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a player that we mocked to the Eagles yesterday, and I mocked to them last week in my 7-round mock draft. I'm going to go with Nick Scourton, the pass rusher from Texas A&M. This is a player that has the ability to really do a lot of different things for you defensively. I like the violence that he plays with. He can hold up and compete well in the run game. I think that he more than checks the box there for Vic Fangio, but he also is young. The arrow is pointing up. He had double-digit sacks as a 19-year-old in the Big Ten, led the Big Ten in sacks that year, went to Texas A&M this year. The production fell off a little bit as he put on a little bit extra weight to kind of sturdy himself for the rigors of the run game in the SEC. I think that played against him a little bit, but I think when you look at him now, the way that he looked at the combine, the way that he looked throughout the rest of the pre-draft process, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about this profile. I think taking him 32 is fine value. And I think, look, maybe he's not an A-plus rusher. We're not talking that he's going to be Julius Peppers, but I think that's perfectly fine, especially in this scheme with Vic Fangio. I think this is a good value and a good fit.
So he's your 42nd overall ranked player. Is that correct? And
let's see. On the updated version of the big board, he will be, I can tell you that in 1 second. He is my 45th player, but 45th on the horizontal board, he's going to go. I have him on the same tier as like Jalen Walker, who's my 28th player, right? And so you start, that's where the horizontal board starts to come into play more so than the vertical board.
And the reason I ask this is because in the 7-round mock draft you had last week, you had the Eagles trading down. Do you think the Eagles can trade down and get Nick Scourton?
I think it's possible. He would be a player. I think that here's how that situation plays out. You get down to 32. You've got an offer on the table to move down, we'll say 6 slots, whatever it is. And there are 6 players that you have all on that same tier on the horizontal board. And for everyone that hasn't seen my big board, the previous version, or if you want to see it when the newest version goes up later today, you have that horizontal board. And if you've got all these guys that are in that same, that same cluster, then yeah, you make that trade down and one of those players falls to you. That's why the Eagles didn't move up for Quinyon Mitchell a year ago because, all right, well, we've got a few guys. We're only a few picks away. They're all graded very similarly. Let's stand pat. And then Quinyon Mitchell falls to you. If Quinyon Mitchell goes 2 picks before, then another player that's in that cluster falls to, and you feel good about it, and you didn't have to give up extra assets. It's the same idea with a trade down. So I do think that Scourton would be in that range where, maybe he goes 28 or maybe he goes 38. Yeah, I think that's the range I think you're talking about with a player like Scourton.
If you have not seen that horizontal that horizontal board, it means you are not like Matthew Greenwood, who in the chat said, "I just became a diehard this morning." Thank you, Matthew Greenwood. Join Matthew Greenwood and become a diehard with this $36 NFL draft intro offer. It will not last forever. I'm going to have my final 7-round mock draft out tomorrow morning on allphly.com, because I imagine I'm going to have picks today where Fran is going to say to me, "Zach, I respect you. I know you're doing your work, but you're nuts, right? This is not going to happen." And I can show you multiple texts that I've had from different people who I respect in the league who say, "Yeah, he's not falling there." Okay. Now, in my defense, and this is all preamble to what I'm going to say.
I saw this tweet. I do agree with what you're saying.
In my defense, how many people had Jalen Carter going to number 10 last year? I'm sorry, to number 9. He would have gone to number 10. The Bears weren't going to take him, but going to number 9 2 years ago, or Nolan Smith going to number 30 2 years ago. How many people had Quinyon Mitchell going to number 22 last year, or had Cooper DeJean going to number 40 last year? And the reason I say this is because mock drafts, like we did yesterday, it's done with logic and intention, and it's almost by chalk, right? It's doing the 64, it's doing the NCAA bracket and not picking upsets. But what happens? There's a team that doesn't go with chalk, and everything after it changes. And it's a big game. It's live television. That's what's awesome about this. So I don't know if the Eagles will get Walter Nolen at 32. Walter Nolen could go number 11 to San Francisco, but I am not as sold on the notion that Walter Nolen is like completely off the board, as multiple people have said. And as you put, you have a great piece up now. I recommend everyone checking this out on allphly.com, which is the wisdom of crowds, where you aggregate different mock drafts. And Walter Nolen's the most popular pick to the Eagles. Is that correct?
He is. Yes. Real quickly, I have, just as you were talking, it occurred to me, I can do this. I have the mock draft, like the wisdom of the crowds mock draft results from the last couple of years. So to answer your question, how many people had Quinyon Mitchell falling to the Eagles? He was actually the 4th most mocked player to the Eagles from that sample that I pulled a year ago.
At 22?
So there were a couple trade ups.
Yes.
Chris Sims, the week of the draft, had them trading up. Tony Pauline had them trading up. Charles Davis from NFL Network, he had Quinyon Mitchell falling to them at 22. Chad Reuter from NFL.com and his mock draft had him falling down there. So there were a couple other mock drafts as well that had him falling to 22. So it wasn't the most common, but it happened at times. With Jalen Carter, give me one sec. So with Jalen Carter, that was less common. Yeah. So that one, he was only mocked to the Eagles 3 times that entire year. All of it was down the stretch where he was falling to the Eagles in that spot, or with a slight trade up, the Eagles getting up, coming up to number 7 in one and number 8 in another.
And I introduced this as a way of saying that I've covered Howie Roseman now going on the 14 years. Every year I wish Howie Roseman would tell me what he's going to do, who he's going to pick. It hasn't yet happened. Right. So what I have to do is I have to talk to different people in the league who I say, what do you think the Eagles are going to do? Or is this going to happen? And I remember that Jalen Carter year, I thought, and this is the backstory to the whole Nolan Smith pick. Okay. I knew the Eagles wanted Jalen Carter. I knew the Eagles liked Nolan Smith. And I talked to someone who I thought had a good pulse on Seattle, who's like, yeah, the Seahawks are going to take Jalen Carter. Or he's, even if they don't, he's not going to get past Detroit, right? Detroit ended up trading out of it, I believe. But this is all a way of saying that if I stuck to my guns, I would have had Jalen Carter going to the Eagles. And then I did not think I did not think Nolan Smith was going to get the 30. Nolan Smith gets the 30 that year. That's why I predicted the Eagles going him. I predicted the Eagles going for him at number 10. This is a roundabout way of saying I have the Eagles taking Walter Nolen with their first round pick. Now, maybe in my draft tomorrow, I have them trading up to 24 to Minnesota to do it, but I'm going with Walter Nolen at this point, and he's one of Fran's top-rated players. Fran has been on the Walter Nolen bandwagon more than anyone that I follow in terms of like the force that he is. I think the athletic profile that he has. I think the way he plays, the positional value, it just makes too much sense. I think the position that the Eagles are most likely to take in the first round is edge rusher. I think the player they are most likely to take is Walter Nolen.
Yeah, and I love the fit. I just as I was getting ready to do the 7-round mock a week ago, and I was making all the calls, talking with people around the league, it just felt like every team that when I was talking with teams that were picking from 12 to 22 to 24, Walter Nolen's name kept coming up. And there were some teams where it was like very concrete, like, yeah, Walter Nolen's definitely in the mix. And then there were others where it was like, you know what, keep him in mind here. He could be a sleeper pick. He could be a wild card pick, Walter Nolen. And so I'm like, as I started getting through that, I don't know if he's going to get out of the early 20s. And I did that. That was I finished the first round or the first half of the first round by Saturday of last week. So a couple Saturdays ago. Since that point, I've become more convicted he's going to go even earlier than that. And I think that now it's like top 15, top 16. It just feels, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to do my final mock draft tonight. It'll be just one round. It'll go up tomorrow on allphly.com, become a diehard again. And it's, I think I'm going to have him go at number 11 to San Francisco. I think when you look at the 49ers and what they need, this is a pick that I actually mocked to the 49ers a month ago, back in my March mock draft. And I'm circling back around. I think it's a great scheme fit. And I think the value makes sense there for Nolen going that high in the draft.
So let's play. I don't want to say therapist, career coach here. Should I change my pick for tomorrow on allphly.com? Is this not going to happen? Are you pounding the table that Walter Nolen will not be an option for the Eagles from 24 on?
I think it would be. I think it's unlikely for him to be there. I'm not going to say that it's definite, right? Yeah. But because, as we said, like a mock draft is just like one version of reality. It's. I know this is lost on you, but this is like Infinity War. Like this is one of a million realities from Doctor Strange. Yeah. This is an Avengers Doctor Strange. Like, yeah, this is one possibility when you do a mock draft. Yes, there are realities that exist where Walter Nolen can fall to the 24th pick, to the 25th pick, but I think it's unlikely as we sit here at 2:13 on Wednesday.
I would also say that my backup option here was Donovan Ezeraku to the Eagles at 32. Who was your backup option at 32?
I didn't have a backup option. Give me 1 second and I can tell you.
I respect that. That's I respect that. That's like in Field of Dreams when they say to Shoeless Joe, "Do you need a catcher?" He says, "Not if you put it over the plate," right? That's the that's the confidence we're looking for. So then let's if you don't.
I would say one name I would keep in mind, and this would be like kind of grit your teeth, but he'd be another one where I feel like it's unlikely this player to fall there. But, Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota State, would probably play guard here in the Eagles scheme, was an outstanding player at the Senior Bowl, tested well at the Combine, checks a lot of boxes. He would be a player I think that would fit in a lot of ways for the Eagles.
Two quick things here before we move on. I have this piece up on allphly.com. The first half of 30 thoughts. The thing I'll pound the table on is I think the Eagles, their top pick, if they draft in the first round, is going to play the line of scrimmage. So offensive line, defensive line, edge rusher. I don't think they're going to take a safety in the first round. I don't think they're going to take a tight end in the first round. I think Malachi Starks is worthy of their pick. I think it'll be a good pick if they did it. I just don't think that's the direction they're going to go. I think the organizational priority, the strength of this class, and then really when you look at it, like the value of having that player on a cost-controlled contract at a premium position is why they'll go with that spot. I don't think they'll make a pick with gritted teeth because I think if there is a run on those players, it means quarterbacks have fallen. And I think if quarterbacks have fallen in this draft, then there's going to be a team that wants to trade up into the bottom, into that number 32 spot, just like we discussed yesterday.
Yeah, I think that this draft is going to be very interesting to see where some of these runs do happen and what that means for everybody beneath it, right? So, tight end is a position that I'm keeping an eye on. Does Tyler Warren? I think Tyler Warren goes first, Colston Loveland, then Mason Taylor. If Tyler Warren goes at 7, then I think that Colston Loveland goes 14. If Tyler Warren falls to the Colts and that's where the run starts, well, then Colston Loveland, does he get to 20 to Denver? What does that mean for, for Mason Taylor? Does he go to the Rams? Does he go to Washington? Where does he end up? But that's, again, one example of like a one position run early can impact what happens to the Eagles there at 32.
So second round, number 64 overall. What do you have the Eagles doing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo, staying with the tight end theme. It's like I planned that. I think when you're looking at Arroyo, this is a guy that chances are he's probably not on the board at 64, but I think with the knee injury history, you could say, okay, only 1 year of real production. Maybe he falls to the back end of round 2. I do think, he would be a player that if you told me that 2 days from now he goes off the board at the 45th pick, would not shock me whatsoever. I think the talent is very deserving of that. So, it might be a pipe dream to expect him to fall to the latter stages of round 2. But I think when you're looking at Arroyo, dynamic pass catcher, has the ability to be a mismatch type at the position, checks the box as a run blocker. I love the fit. I love the value there for the Eagles in that spot.
I think it's a good idea there. I am not as big on Arroyo as you are. I can certainly see the appeal. I think that is the range where Arroyo goes. I think that the big chess piece there will be, when does Mason Taylor go? Is that if Mason Taylor goes in the first round, like we talk about, then Arroyo probably gets pushed up the board because he's the next tight end there. If there's not that run on tight, if Mason Taylor goes on day 2, even before the Eagles, then I'm expecting Mason Taylor to go before Arroyo. And so in that case, Arroyo could fall to 64.
Yeah, I think Mason Taylor will go before Arroyo. Yeah. I personally have Arroyo ahead of Taylor, but I think that Taylor will go first. We talked about it yesterday. I think the ceiling there could be the Rams. I think that is a team that would make some sense there. A team shrouded in mystery, by the way, the LA Rams.
And so Fran's going to see my number 64 pick and say, like, did you ask Mila Kunis to your prom or something? Like, why do you think these people are available to you? And the answer to this is I'm going Nick Scourton at number 64. So Nick Scourton, who Fran has as his first round pick for the Eagles. Okay. But you look at it, I think he's Dane Brugler's 59th rated player. He is Daniel Jeremiah's, now he's gone up on Jeremiah's board. I think he's Jeremiah's 45th rated player. I think he's in that range of edge rushers. You put it so well to me when I did actually this same sequence, Nolen Scourton, I think it was 3 weeks ago for YouTube when I did our YouTube mock draft. You made the point there's going to be an edge rusher who falls. Now, I don't know who it is. Maybe that's James Pierce who falls, right? But maybe this requires a slight trade up for the Eagles to get Scourton. I see in the chat, Christopher W says there's no way Scourton gets to 64. I think if there's any if there's any type of edge rusher who falls, it's one who's not athletically, who doesn't have elite athletic traits. I think those are the players who tend to fall more than anything else.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the board, right, you look at how many edge rushers there are. I don't love the edge rushers available in round 1, personally, for like the way we're talking about Shamar Stewart going, where Mike Green is going, where Ezraku is going, right? But I think when you get into round 2, I love the value of Landon Jackson, of JT Tuimoloau. And again, you throw in Nick Scourton into that group. Now that's when you get into James Pierce Jr. You get to Olufemi Oladejo from UCLA. Braden Swinson is getting some round 2 love out of LSU. Some people think Jack Sawyer from Ohio State could go in that realm. And you start going, there's a lot of players that I think could end up in this part of the draft. And so again, what's the way that a Scourton could fall? All right, well, Landon Jackson goes, JT Tuimoloau goes. Somebody fall in love with Oladejo and the character and the upside, and arrow pointing up. All of a sudden, he goes there, right? And so, at the end of the day, this is a game of runs. It's a game of trying to figure out and play matchmaker. Maybe a run happens along the offensive line. When I'm looking at my horizontal board right now, I see a glut of offensive linemen up higher, and then the edge rushers, there's the glut that's a little bit lower. So maybe teams view it that way where, hey, you know what? If we want an offensive lineman, we have to take one now. And so that's where you could see guys at that position start to go earlier than some of the defensive linemen, and that pushes those defensive tackles and edge rushers a little bit further down the board.
Yeah, and so my backup options here were actually two Ohio State guys, Tyleik Williams and Donovan Jackson. I would if I went if I want Ezraku in the first round, I probably would go D tackle here for the Eagles. And so I was so Tyleik Williams, Shamar Turner, those are two guys you can look at.
Yep.
I don't love the second round D tackles as much. I would probably lean more toward offensive line in that situation. I actually think there's some intriguing offensive linemen there. Donovan Jackson is the name I would watch.
I keep seeing Marina Sands in the chat saying Scourton is a defensive tackle, not an edge rusher. Marina, yes, Scourton played at 280 pounds this fall, but he's down to 265. He's under 260 during the combine and pro day circuit. His ideal weight is 265. That's the way he played at Purdue back in 2023. Put on extra weight purposely to hold up better against the run. That was a decision that he made and him and his family made going into his junior season to try and improve his draft stock and prove that he was a full two-way player off the edge. And so he's an edge rusher, Nick Scourton, at the end of the day.
If you want to hear why Fran Duffy thinks I'm crazy for the rest of my picks and that I am overthinking these guys, stay tuned right after this break. Let me tell you about PHLY, because you're watching the draft. You want a new light modern beer for your Super Bowl champion Eagles when you're watching them in the draft. PHLY is the way to go. It's from the Pabst Brewing Company. It's only 96 calories, 3.5 grams of carbs, and full of crisp and refreshing flavor. So you're watching the draft and you don't have to worry about extra carbs or extra calories. They use the same high quality ingredients so you can get the high quality beer at a smart, approachable price. It retains that fun, independent spirit that Pabst Light's known for, but it's light, so it's great. It tastes good. It has that high quality Pabst brand, and it's light beer. Learn more about the new Pabst Light at PabstLight.com. Please drink responsibly. You must be 21 or older.
I got home from the studio yesterday, and there was a swarm of bees outside, like outside my front door. And I think they were trying to find a home. Thankfully, they have moved on. They are no longer outside. But I thought, all right, like spring is here. It's hot outside. I can't wait for once we get through the draft. We get into the month of May, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be outside. But if I'm going to be out there, I need some new glasses. I need to call our friends at Shady Rays, because it's never too early to start thinking about the summer and the sun. Our friends at Shady Rays are helping you get in the right frame of mind with their premium polarized shades that will not break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. So no matter what you're into outside, maybe you like going up the mountains, you like to do the skiing and the snowboarding in the wintertime, or maybe you just like getting out on the lake, going to the beach, going for hikes in the mountains, losing water bottles and getting them stolen from random people on the trail. Whatever it is that you're into, you can go, and you've got sunglasses in all shapes and sizes for adults and for kids with so many colors available. You'll find a pair that's perfect for you, even in some Eagles green. So if your shades ever go missing, they take that unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They've got this insane protection plan, the craziest in all of eyewear. Every single pair from Shady Rays is backed by their lost or broken replacement program. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team is always has your back with personal and fast support. PHLY viewers and listeners, go now to ShadyRays.com and save 35% off polarized sunglasses with the code PHLY. Again, over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use that code PHLY today at ShadyRays.com.
So I read every comment, right? And I've been curious about the comments on the Fran and Zach shows here, and some of the feedback is it's so dense. Where's the small talk? Where's the non-football talk, right? And look, I don't want to waste Fran Duffy's time during draft week, but If you have a pizza shop and someone wants the pizza to be a little more crisp, then you got to think about that. So I did have one question for you because when I finished my book, the question I got was like, all right, what's the first thing you're doing the next day, right? So Sunday morning, you wake up. What's the first thing you're doing Sunday morning?
Taking the dog for like a 1.5 mile walk. Unfortunately, she's not going to let me out of that. So, so I will, once I get settled in, I'll have some coffee. Honestly, me and Francis will play together because I will have, I'll miss 3 straight nights with Francis. So that'll be fun. Honestly, it's just good. I'm going to try and relax best I can Sunday. Monday, it's a lot of like post draft because now it's honestly like I start watching and I try and get ahead of it. I watch every single post draft press conference from every single pick for all 32 teams. So yeah, like I want to start that as fast as possible. So I'll start working. Maybe I'm watching film on Eagles undrafted free agents, and I'll be writing those guys up for Die Hard. So maybe I'm watching film, listening to those in the background, taking my notes on that as that's going. Try and get through as much of that as possible while it's all fresh in my mind. And then once we get out of that, then we're starting to golf a couple times a week and things of that nature. So I'm excited for that time of the year.
I've never heard a more satisfying answer than the day after the draft, you're gonna do some more draft work. That's awesome. That's like when Mike Zimmer, there was an NFL Films clip. They asked him what he would do if he wasn't coaching. And he's like, I don't know. I'd probably just be coaching somewhere, right? So yeah. That also asking that question, that was like me brushing my teeth with my right hand, right? It just didn't feel natural not talking football on the show here.
I thought for sure there was going to be a B question. I thought for sure I was like, oh, that guy bought up the B's. They were going to hit me on that. So I'm glad we were able to move past it.
I did enjoy B movie with Jerry Seinfeld. That was I enjoyed that. So third round here. Okay. Let's get right back to business. Third round. The Eagles have the number 96 overall pick. I will tell you which player I'll take that you probably had going in the first round. Who do you have going here at number 96 overall?
Yeah, I ended up going with Iowa State tackle Jalen Travis. This was a player that the Eagles had in for a 30 visit a few weeks back, reportedly. To me, this, some people might have him going into day 3, and I could definitely see that. I think that he's still a little bit of a work in progress. High school basketball player, was late to the sport of football, ends up going to Princeton, joined our friend Coach Flynn there with the Princeton Tigers, was there for a couple of years, transferred to Iowa State last year for his final year. He's still a work in progress. I thought he was one of the rougher participants at the Senior Bowl. What I saw live in Mobile was not great. I thought he was fine in the positional workout in Indianapolis. I thought that kind of caught my eye a little bit and was like, all right, I'm excited to kind of dig into this film. And the film's not terrible. I think that there's something there to work with. I think that he's got the ability to be a swing tackle. This would be akin to the Tyler Steen pick. I have a similar grade on Travis that I had on Steen coming out, where it's more like high-end backup as opposed to low-end starter. I just feel like tackles are just going to go off the board, in this draft. I think that it starts to dry up once you get past the Jalen Travis tier of player. And so if the Eagles are going to address tackle, which I do anticipate that they will, and you have said the same thing, that you think that they will address swing tackle at some point, I think you kind of have to do it around this point in the draft.
Fran, you're going to hate my number 165 overall pick. But yeah, no, that's outstanding analysis. And I can tell you, you said reportedly made it a top 30 visit. I have seen photo confirmation of Jalen Travis in Philadelphia for that top 30 visit. So yeah, I feel confident that he came. And no, that's definitely a player that Eagles fans should keep their eye on. Staying in the tackle department here, but a little higher up on your rankings at number 96 overall. This is a guy who I've been keen on going back, really, I wouldn't say before the season, but early in the draft process when I first heard about him and first watched him, and that's Charles Grant, the offensive tackle from William & Mary. I think he has an athletic profile that Jeff Stoutland will really like. You look at unique traits. This is a former high school wrestler who goes to William & Mary, so not a big school, but really productive there under Mike London. And, if you're from a lower level of competition, you want standout performance, you want those unique traits. He has the unique traits. It might take some time to develop, but he's a player that I think makes a lot of sense if he's on the board in the third round.
Yeah, I would love this pick. I think there's a lot to be excited about with this player. He's a little bit short. He's built similarly to Jason Peters, where like he's got modest height. Like he's not, Jason Peters was not like this tall, towering, like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. Like he was more like the shorter side, but long arms. He built himself into a bigger frame, but we know he came into the league as a tight end. Grant a little bit, built similarly, where he's got 34, almost 35-inch arms, 310 pounds. Coming from a lower level of competition, I would have felt a lot better about the evaluation if we got to see him in Mobile, if we got to see him work out at the combine, things of that nature. That gives me a little bit of pause with Charles Grant, but watching him, I mean, the freaky athleticism is apparent the moment you start the film. Outstanding range as a run blocker, screen game. He could be a weapon on the move. Like very fun to try and project him to this Eagles scheme. He's going to need time. Like I would say, like a redshirt year plus, in my opinion. I don't think that he would be ready to compete right now. I also don't think that he would be a guard. I think that this would be a swing tackle, a tackle only moving forward. And so I think when you're looking at Charles Grant, I think this value is perfectly fine. I like him there in round 3. If he had gone through the whole pre-draft process, if we saw a little bit more against better competition, I think he would have had the ability to play himself into round 2. But I think end of round 3 feels right for Charles Grant.
And I just want to point out that to all the viewers who read our friend Jimmy Kemsky, if you think that I'm taking Jimmy Kemsky's picks, I would tell you watch on YouTube for March 21st when I had the same top 3, right? So I haven't deviated from the top 3 now. Maybe the league has moved off it, but I can promise you Jimmy Kemsky did not take my picks because I know as a rule of thumb, Jimmy doesn't consume other people's work. He doesn't want it infiltrating. So I could say great minds think alike, perhaps. But
I was just going to say, I was shots fired at Jimmy. You accusing him of stealing your work.
No. There's some people I could say that about. I know Jimmy does not. I know Jimmy does not do that. Jimmy is independent with the way he goes about his work. Is Charles Grant going to be there in the 3rd round?
Look, I think when you talk about any player that has his traits, like if he went 48, if he went 57, that would not surprise me. But to me, looking at the profile, I think that when you have a smaller school player who didn't go through the pre-draft process, I think that clouds the evaluation enough that it could cause him to fall.
And I should also add that if I have the Eagles making a trade in either the 1st round, presumably in the 1st round, then I wouldn't have Charles Grant in my mock draft. I would have this pick going in a deal. So let's move on then to the 4th round, where the Eagles have the number 134 overall pick.
Yeah, in my mock draft, I had them taking Barrett Carter, the linebacker from Clemson. I think when you're looking at Carter, they shot from this aisle a couple times last year when they took Will Shipley, when they took Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think when you're looking at Carter, A+ intangibles, the athleticism, I would say, it's a higher level than when you got with Trotter. Trotter was a little bit better in the box, navigating through traffic, playing through contact. He was around the ball a little bit more, was more productive on a per snap basis when compared to Carter. But I think Carter's athletic upside would be tantalizing there. He's not a plus athlete, but certainly a better athlete than when you got with Trotter. And then also just the intangibles. I think you made the point on the show last week that he could be our type of player for the Eagles in those systems.
Yeah, I am with you in that. And I will say that my 164 pick, we're probably not going to have to give much analysis about. Barrett Carter, to kind of add on to what you just said there, we're gonna have a segment on the show tomorrow night. And by the way, join us 8:00 tomorrow night. We're on throughout the draft. 6:30 on Friday night. We'll be on throughout the draft. Same thing throughout the draft on Saturday. But we're gonna have a My Guy segment where like players that were higher on than consensus at that position, who we're kind of pounding the table for. And at linebacker, that's Barrett Carter for me. This is, I think Barrett Carter's a starter in the NFL. I just think that you wish he was a little bigger, or you wish he were a little bigger, but I think that he can play. I liked him more than Trot Jr. at Clemson. Trot Jr. was a better blitzer. I thought Carter was played better sideline to sideline. And Trot Jr. was the linebacker into My Guys last year. So that's going to be Barrett Carter this year. Let's get to the first of the 5th round picks. That's number 161 overall.
Yeah, I'm going with Syracuse running back LaQuint Allen. To me, that there are a number of elements of his profile that I think would make him attractive for the Eagles. Certainly, what he can do in the pass game, accomplished receiver, aggressive pass protector. One of the better.
Wait, I am sorry. We jumped over. I did not give my 4th round pick. I am sorry there.
There you
yes.
go.
Sorry about that.
We were so caught up with Carter.
Yeah. But now we know who you took in the 5th round. So my 4th round pick here. This would be a good conversation before the break. I'm curious what you think if this guy's going to be on here, because I've heard this guy might fall farther than what some of the mock drafts have, and that is Harold Fannin Jr. From Bowling Green. And I'm trying at this point. I'm trying to slot tight ends, and I'm trying to figure out which tight end's going to go where. And I've heard Fannin might be the tight end who drops to the 4th round. You see him more in the 3rd round in some of these other mock drafts. Obviously, you can make the connection that he played for Scott Loeffler, the Eagles quarterbacks coach at Bowling Green, but he is someone that he's certainly more of a pass catcher, high volume player at Bowling Green, a function of that offense. He didn't run exceptionally well, but he, for that size, and I'll defer to you, you probably want to see a little better 40. But when you watch him, he's running away from people. He's good in the open field. It's, and I always think back to something that Joe Douglas said when they took Dallas Goedert. And that's if they're not at the high level of competition, you want to see them dominate their competition. And that's what Fannin did. And then the last thing I'll add, and shout out to our colleague Tyler Zoli, when I speak to some coaches, but scouts in particular, one thing that they say is that if you're going, you want to see someone from these schools play against the major conference schools, like guys that you might see in the NFL. And when Fannin played against Penn State, he looked like he belonged on the field. He was one of the few guys on that Bowling Green offense who looked like he belonged on the field. And so I like Fannin more than most, and I have him as the 4th round pick here.
Yeah, I would say him falling to the end of round 4 would be surprising. He hasn't had the most impressive pre-draft process. When you talk about the combine, the workout, it was a little bit underwhelming for a guy his size. But that said, it's very hard for a tight end to be as productive as he was over. I mean, we haven't really seen it, right? I mean, you're talking about the numbers that this guy put up last year playing for Scott Loeffler and the Bowling Green Falcons. 117 catches, over 1,500 yards, 13 yards a catch, 10 touchdowns. He also had 9 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. When you're looking at Fannin, 6'3", 240. You wouldn't imagine he's this great blocker. He's not a great blocker, but again, I think that he checks the box and it is perfectly fine. I think when you're talking to me, better than what Calcaterra was coming out of SMU, right? And Calcaterra was, I don't want to say a non-factor, but was not a good blocker, in college. And I think when you're looking at Fannin, same thing I feel about with Arroyo. There's some 1-2 there. He'll stick his face into contact and try and take on a linebacker as a wrapper on counter and as a split zone against a defensive end on the backside. He does a nice job on those plays. And so when I'm looking at Fannin, this is a guy where Bowling Green, Scott Loeffler, they looked at him and said this is our best chance. He had a 35% target share last year. That's higher than any tight end drafted in the last decade in their final season of college football. When I say target share, I mean the percentage of targets in an offense, going to him, 35% of their passes went to Harold Fannin Jr. So they went into that saying, we're going to funnel this guy the ball, a lot of big crossers and vertical routes, some screens, intermediate routes. I mean, he did everything in that offense. There'd be a lot of reasons to be excited about that pick.
And then I just want to add here that even though tight end is a clear need for the Eagles, especially assuming they move on from Dallas Goedert, I don't think that the Eagles will definitely take a tight end. I think if it gets to, I don't think they feel they need to fill their depth chart out with a tight end. And what I mean by that is if it gets to the point where the impact players aren't there, I think they'll have a post-draft contingency, whether that's trading for Michael Mayer, whether that is, there's a handful of different things they could potentially do. But you saw last year, they thought they were going to get offensive tackle early. Did not happen. So they end up signing Mekhi Becton after the draft. And I could see them having a scenario in place where they operate at tight end post-draft if they don't get a guy that they think could contribute this year. You will tell us why LaQuint Allen is your first 5th round pick right after this break. We are talking about ceilings and floors, and we're focusing right now on floors. And the floors I am talking to you about are Empire Today's floors. Empire Today, just like your favorite player in this draft, maybe it's Walter Nolen, maybe it's Nick Scourton, maybe it's Harold Fannin, maybe it's LaQuinn Allen. They all have a floor. Well, you know who else has floors? Empire Today. They are the flooring experts. They're dedicated flooring professionals. They focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to these big box stores where you wander in these endless aisles. Somehow you're bringing these materials home. You're looking for an installer. You're coordinating everything yourself. There's some things that I can do well. There's some things I can't. Flooring, I can't do well. And so I want to go to an expert. I don't want to go to someone who was doing sinks yesterday and will be doing light bulbs tomorrow. I don't want to be doing kind of my own do-it-yourself project here. And I don't want to be overwhelmed with, someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's why I turned to Empire Today. Empire Today, you can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. You can see how it looks with your furniture in your house. You get precise measurements and you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you schedule the installation as soon as the next day. Nobody likes to wait. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire Today/PHLY for full details.
We'll now hear from our friends at Timeline because, obviously we've been talking about the draft over the course of this episode, over the course of the last few weeks. And, the draft is all about finding building blocks for your roster, finding building blocks for your team, almost like cells in our body. Well, Timeline, it's a supplement that works with those cells to help give you more energy, feel stronger during workouts, and preserve health and mobility as you start to get older. And the patent ingredient is MitoPure. It's a postbiotic nutrient that clears our dysfunctional mitochondria. That's our cells' battery packs, and it just kind of recycles them and gets you rolling here. With regular use, you'll see and feel the difference in the form of improved energy levels, better workouts, faster recovery, more endurance, and more. MitoPure recharges your cells and helps your body systems to work better. It's the only supplement that's clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. That is a huge win. I will tell you, as I've gotten older, I start to feel like, all right, it's that age is starting to catch up with me a little bit. Maybe you out there, you're watching, you're listening, you're feeling that too. You can get ready to be your best, most energized, and most revitalized version of yourself. All you have to do is go over to Timeline. Timeline is giving you 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/PHLY today to get started. Again, that's timeline.com/PHLY.
So, Fran, you have some friends in the Eagles social media department. You saw them this week post a tweet about Donovan McNabb. In that tweet, they highlight Syracuse football, and the Eagles have not drafted a player from Syracuse since then. Why could LaQuinn Allen change that?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at Allen, as I started saying earlier, he does check a lot of the boxes that I think would make him an attractive player for them. And I said this last week, but I thought that when you and Bo did the running back episode a few weeks ago, where you highlighted some of the different trends you've seen from the Eagles, from Howie Roseman over the course of his tenure, the running backs they tend to target, it's usually guys with short resumes, not a lot of carries on their body. LaQuinn Allen checks that mark. He's been at Syracuse for 3 years, but so he's a true junior. He'll only be 20 years old when training camp opens this summer. He's never had more than 245 carries in a year. I could tell you, like when I've talked with people on that staff, that they were high on him when he first got there, and he just proved to be like one of the more tough, physical players on that football team. He'll pass protect, he'll catch the ball. I didn't always love his landmarks, in terms of his vision, and he could be a little bit slow at times getting through the hole. Honestly, I said the same thing about Saquon Barkley. I said the same thing about DeAndre Swift. I've said the same thing about a number of Eagles running backs over the last few years. And it always kind of turns out that those running backs were able to correct some of those flaws. And I think a lot of that credit is deserved, for Jamal Singleton, the Eagles running backs coach. I think he does a really good job of kind of, helping those guys hit the best version of themselves. And so when I'm looking at LaQuinn Allen, I see the age, I see the profile, I see the way that he can impact, because you lose Kenny Gainwell, a guy that can do a little bit of everything in that backfield. I think Allen would check that box. He's a big, broad frame, long arms, a little bit light at 204 pounds, but he looks the part. Solid athlete across the board. I thought he went down to the Senior Bowl. He did a nice job down there. So I like a lot of what LaQuint Allen brings to the table. I think middle of day 3, that's a great dart to throw.
Yeah, player I watched quite a bit. A player too that Dom DeSandro will have to sign off on. There was some off the field stuff when he was at Syracuse, but I can say this about Dom. Dom is plugged in New Jersey. LaQuint Allen is a New Jersey guy. He's from Millville, the hometown of Mike Trout. My favorite spot to eat in Millville, in case anyone wants to know, Jim's Lunch. Make sure you go to Jim's Lunch in Millville. Get the burger with the special sauce. It is absolutely worth it. So I hope it's still there, by the way. But yeah, it's Mike. If I can do a little flex, Mike Trout recommended that I go there. And I was doing a story on Trout. I asked him where to eat. He told me to go to Jim's Lunch. He told me who to ask for at the counter, and they
still open.
All right, good. They hooked me up. It was really good. So my number one. I'm sorry, my number 161 overall pick here. I have the Eagles going with a safety. I have a safety that I like. He was in comp. He might be the my guy safety. But he's someone that I can see competing for time right away with the Eagles, competing with Sidney Brown right away, even though I have him in the 5th round here. You might say this is he's not going to be on the board here, but I also tend to think that when you get to this point in the draft, there's here, I'll frame it this way. There's less of a chance who someone would go at number 10 would fall to 32, right? There is a chance, when you get to 3rd round, 5th round, at that point, it's really the eye of the beholder. That's why teams trade back, because boards are much more scattered at that point. Teams look at positions a little more at that point. So I am going with Andrew Mukumba from Texas via Clemson.
Why did you just take Kevin? Why didn't you just take Malachi Starks in that spot? He probably hurt.
Touche. That's a good comeback. I should have said Malachi Starks. That actually would have been funny. Yeah. So look, I think this guy can be a starter pretty quickly in the NFL. He has instincts that I like. He flies around. You would like him to be a little bit bigger, and maybe a little bit bigger and a little bit better in coverage, right? Like he's not someone who you're probably isolating on if he has to cover a receiver one-on-one, you're probably not excited about that. But he's someone who he finds the ball. He's always around. You might say there's some duplication with Sidney Brown. I don't look at it that way, and I think he could be better than Sidney Brown.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at Mukumba, I think he fits the Vic Fangio play style. He would fit in with that secondary with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell and Blankenship. I mean, he's tough, he's physical, he's aggressive. I love watching him run the alley. Meaning he's lined up deep in the deep part of the field and running into the flat. Through the middle there. I think when you're looking at this guy play, he's got an infectious play personality. It's honestly what first put him on my radar when he was a freshman at Clemson. I remember watching members of that defense and just seeing this kid flying around the field. I'm like, who is the safety? And I was like, oh my, he's a true freshman. All right, let me write this guy's name down for down the road. And he never really kind of took that next step with Clemson, but he goes to Texas this year and he did an excellent job. He will miss some tackles, kind of like Sidney Brown. He could come in a little bit too hot at times, a little bit out of control, but he's got no panic in his game when he's targeted downfield. I do think that he's probably a 3rd round pick. At the end of the day, I would be a little bit surprised if he fell into day 3, but a good player. There are a lot of fans of his around the league.
Yeah, and look, maybe I'm around too late. Now, last year I had the Eagles taking J.L.X. Hunt in my mock draft. I had the Eagles taking Will Shipley in my mock draft. I just had them taking him a round later than they did. So perhaps I can hit 3 or 4 of these picks, but just maybe Scourton's the 1st rounder and Mukumba's the 3rd. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think this is a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. The next pick for you is number 164.
Yeah, and at 164, I had the Eagles selecting Ty Hamilton, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. They love to pluck. We've seen one trend over the last few years is, all right, they're going to get a key player from a national championship team, a national championship defense. Obviously, that was the Georgia Bulldogs for a couple of years there, but Alabama before that with Landon Dickerson and Devontae Smith. Hamilton has been a key cog of that Ohio State defensive line. Now, he's not as sexy a player as some of these other defensive tackles in this class. He is more your classic like lunch pail type. I think he would be a backup to Jordan Davis in the middle as your nose tackle. He can give you some quality reps as a run defender on the interior. One of the tougher defensive linemen in this class. I do think that his ability to play up and down the line of scrimmage, that I think that would be a good fit for Vic Fangio in this scheme. Kind of keep the linebackers clean. One little connection that I liked as well. His older brother Davon was a third-round pick out of Ohio State a few years back. Went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the GM for the Jaguars during that time was Dave Caldwell, who is now an executive and one of the has been here with the Eagles now for the last couple of years. And those kind of connections happen more than you think over the course of the draft cycle. So something certainly that kind of caught my eye there when I was looking at Hamilton in this spot.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying there. The Dave Caldwell connection is a good one. I've heard a lot of good things about Dave Caldwell. I think he did a better job in Jacksonville than the reputation suggests. Although sometimes I think he's in Philly to so Howie can like poke fun at those Jags drafts because Howie tends to do that from time to time. But no, that's a good pick, and I think it's a really good idea. My number one, so I will do 164 and 165 together here because they're two guys we've already discussed. I have Barrett Carter going 164. I have Jalen Travis going 165. This is a player, you have Barrett Carter going in the 4th round. You have Jalen Travis going in the 3rd round. So, I am not getting good marks on this mock draft from Fran Duffy, but these are players that, if the purpose of the mock draft too is like to try to say, all right, these are guys that I think, the Eagles would like the characteristics, the way they play. These are both players that I think would fit the Eagles.
Yeah, I think it's probably fine. Obviously, I'm gonna poke fun at you, but I think that it definitely makes sense to give our viewers an idea of here are some of the players that could be on the board for the Eagles on the 3rd day of the draft.
Yeah. So you are up then here at number 168.
Yeah, and at 168, I went with another player who's been in on a 30 visit, and that's SMU pass rusher Elijah Roberts. Began his career at Miami. Heavy-handed pass rusher. This is a guy that wins with his bull rush, his play strength, his competitiveness, and his violence. He ended up transferring to SMU a couple years ago, so he spent 2 seasons there with the Mustangs and was double-digit sacks each of the last 2 years. Obviously, SMU, they went to the college football playoff this year, and when you see his ability to kind of reset the line of scrimmage in the run game, when I watch him, I'm like, okay, this plays well in a Vic Fangio style of scheme. That same violence you see from Nolan Smith, he's got it. Now, he doesn't have the same athletic upside, the same juice off the ball out of his stance that Nolan Smith has. But when you watch him, he's got some savvy to him. What I like is he's a no-nonsense rusher, and he seems to know his athletic limitations, right? So he knows, like, all right, well, maybe I can't bend and turn the corner the way some of these other rushers can, but here's the way I can win. I'm going to set you up with my bull rush, and then I can throw in a ghost move or some kind of a counter off of that bull rush to kind of keep tackles guessing. And so it can take some players, some rushers, time to kind of fully grasp that and fully understand that. I think Roberts comes ready-made in that department, and with the way he plays the run, I think that he's going to end up going probably anywhere from round 4, round 5, somewhere in that range. He was one of my favorite players that I saw up close at the Shrine Bowl, my first All-Star event here this offseason. So, Elijah Roberts, I was glad that he came in on a 30 visit. I think that does signify interest on the Eagles' part. I do think he would be a good fit for this defense.
Yeah, well said. And I think the 30 visits are especially applicable when you're talking about day 3, because the Eagles aren't wasting their time and their money, the coach's time, the scouts, the executives' times, whoever's seeing them on these visits, they're not wasting it for like subterfuge with a day 3 guy, right? Sometimes you're doing it with day 1 to kind of get people off your scent. But if you're doing it day 3, if you're bringing in Elijah Roberts, if you're bringing in Jalen Travis, if you're bringing in the guy I'm about to talk about it's because you have legitimate interest in this player. So I think that's a good pick for the Eagles. So for my final pick here, we all watched, Barrett Carter film. We watched Barrett Carter live, not in person, but on TV. And if you watch that Clemson Texas game, you saw Barrett Carter coming from the left side. Okay, on the film, I have it in my mind's eye. You have him coming from the left side, and you have Jaden Blue from Texas running to the offense's left, running away from Barrett Carter. I can't tell you that was on purpose, but I can tell you that there was no one else on that Clemson defense who was catching up to Jaden Blue when he ran 77 yards in the playoff game against Texas. And Jaden Blue is the running back that I have targeted for the Eagles. They brought him in for a visit, so obviously that I'm not going out on a limb here. Not a high volume player when he was in college. Kind of started his career behind Jonathan Brooks, behind Bijan Robinson, right? So they've had loaded backfields. Well, it's kind of part of this committee backfield this year. But you're talking about legit speed. You're talking about someone who, I'm not saying that he's going to be a starter in the NFL, but I think he's a guy who can find a role in a backfield in the NFL in the 5th round. That's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, he's electric. He's electricity personified at the running back spot. The big thing, he's got great value in the pass game. You want him in space. I didn't love him as a runner, like downhill between the tackles. I think he will be a role player in the NFL. You can get into the discussion too, I think that Nick Sirianni would love to have a player like this. I just don't know that like Jalen Hurts has necessarily shown that he's the quarterback that will take advantage of a running back like this, of trying to incorporate those running backs in the pass game and, getting them a lot of targets. And we've had this conversation for years. So I don't know that I would want to draft a running back where that's where his sole value is, or, that's where his primary value is. I just don't know that you're going to get the ROI there. I will say too, he paid a visit to the Eagles. He paid a visit to, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like, I would guess like 2/3 of the league, wanted to get an extra look at Jaden Blue. Typically, when there's a player that has that high volume of visits, it's because teams want to get they're interested, but they're interested in getting another look and getting him, getting more face time with him to see if he would be a fit in their building and in their culture, and more coaches to speak with them in extended time. So I think that there's something there as well with the Jaden Blue selection. But this guy is electric. He can help you on offense. He can help you as a return man in theory as well. So that's a fine dart swing at the end of the draft. Dart swing is not a term, but it's dart throw. Fine dart throw at the end of the draft.
Yeah. All right. So I finally have one pick that you say, all right, that's realistic. Of my 7 other picks, which one should I change for tomorrow?
How much time you got?
Well,
I think. I mean, I as we're sitting here now, I would be very surprised if Walter Nolen was there, certainly there at 32. And I think even still, I would be surprised if he got into the range that the Eagles could trade up to get him. Okay. But I think if you really want to keep Walter Nolen in there, I think you at least have to make it. All right, they got to trade up to go get him. Okay. How high would they trade up to go get him? I guess that's the question. Let me ask you that. What is the highest you could say? All right, Walter Nolen's their target. They see him as a tier above everybody else. He gets into the late teens, into the early 20s. You said 24. Yeah. What's the most you think that they would be willing to give up to get a player like Nolen, or whoever that player is that would fall to that range?
Yeah, good question. I don't think they're giving up their 2nd rounder this year unless they can get a 3rd rounder back this year, right? So you move back, but yeah. I think they would give up a 1st, a 3rd, and a 5th, or a 1st, a 3rd, and then a pick from next year. By the way, I want to say I'm going to fully answer this question when you finish watching this in overtime. I might have been a little premature with my overtime, actually. I'm looking at my clock and not the countdown here. But anyways, make sure you tune in to imagine Bo in a hospital room right now, just like keeping notes on Zach screwed this up and that up and that up and that up, right? What are you looking at?
There's a bee on my ceiling, so I'm not feeling good right now.
Sorry.
The bees are. I hope they're not infiltrating. This time of year, they typically do like 1 or 2 will make their way inside. I was able to transplant 2 of them from our one window on Sunday. But after seeing that swarm yesterday, I'm like, oh no, like what's going on? And now there's one up here, and he's just hanging out on the ceiling above me, but we'll see. Hopefully he stays up there for now.
Yeah, quick funny B story, 30-second B story. When the the first day on the job at PHLY, we're getting a tour of the new studio. It's this beautiful studio, and the person giving the tour, he's like, "I want to show you this," and he brings me up to the roof deck, and he's like, "And we even have like a beef farm up here." And I'm like, "Is this supposed to be a recruiting pitch?" Like, he's like, "You can do a show. It's great." I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere near the bees for the show." But no, to the point that you're saying, I think I think that the Eagles would be more willing to trade future picks this year than they typically are. They have a deep stash of them. I know people are saying 12. I think it's more like 11. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that Ojulari signing is going to cancel out the Isaiah Rodgers signing from the comp pick perspective. Regardless, 11 picks. Number one there, and then number two, you can add to that pick with Dallas Goedert.
Yep.
And then also, and Howie showed this last year, Howie's very willing to move back on day 3. So he can move back from the 4th round to the 5th round and then add a 5th next year in that, or add a 6th next year in that. So this is all a way of saying that I don't think he'd be worried about trading a pick next year to move up. But I don't think he's going to give up that second. I don't think he'll obviously give up a future first. And so I think 24 would be the spot that I would kind of circle to move up.
Yeah, I think that there are a few teams that are in that area that I think that would be willing to move back. It would just be, can you get the right price? So you mentioned the Eagles not willing to part with that 2nd round pick. Depending on how high you want to move up, that could be a sticking point. And so it's going to be interesting to see how far they would be willing to move if Nolen were to fall. Is there anybody else in your mind that you think that they would make that kind of a move up for?
Yeah, and I was about to ask you. Mykel Williams is the guy that stands out to me. So between Mykel Williams and Walter Nolen, who's more likely to fall?
I think See, like I hear all kinds of different things on Mykel. I think Mykel Williams could go as high as 8. And I mean, speaking of, like, Todd McShay released his final mock draft a little bit ago, a few hours ago. He had Walter Nolen going 8 to the Carolina Panthers. I have heard Mykel Williams going at 8. This bee he's freaking out right in front of me. So Mykel Williams, I think, could go as high as 8 to the Carolina Panthers. I think he could go 9. He might be my pick for the Saints at 9. He might be my pick for the Bears at 10. But I've also seen plenty of mock drafts where he falls into the early 20s. And so, like, I think that he is another player of that ilk. And it's what we were saying with Scourton, right? Like, oh, there's no way Scourton could fall. Well, not all of these guys are going to go that high. It's just a matter of, does the right player fall for the Eagles to be motivated to try and make that move up?
Well said. The last thing I'll say, because I know you want to get away from this B, is that and it's interesting. JG just put this in the chat. The player who has kind of been like the top 20 guy throughout the process, who could potentially be on the board at 32, that I think deserves more attention in some of these mock drafts, because I haven't really seen him mocked to the Eagles, is Josh Simmons. I think that Josh Simmons is the guy who could fall to the Eagles' range at 32, who could be a potential Eagles pick. And the Eagles have the benefit of patience with him. Obviously, as you've noted more than anyone else, the patellar tendon, that's a serious injury. That's different than an ACL. It's harder to recover from than an ACL. So your medical staff has to sign off on it. But if your medical staff's okay with Simmons, the Eagles are very proud of that Landon Dickerson pick, right? And they waited till week 2. It's not even that long. Like, it's crazy to think Landon Dickerson dropped week 2. And so Simmons would be the guy to watch. I don't think the Eagles are going to draft at 32. I think the Eagles are going to be aggressive in moving up, or I think that there's going to be teams that want a quarterback or potentially a wide receiver, but more likely a quarterback who trades with the Eagles to get that 5th-year option. Teddy Bridgewater was a 5th-year option player. Lamar Jackson, as we know, in 2018 with the Eagles, was a 5th-year option player, both going at 32. So I don't think
spread your turkeys to trade up, trade back, stay put.
Yeah. I'm going 40 trading up, 40 trading back, 20 staying put.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you?
I think where I landed yesterday was 50 trade back. Was it 30 trade up, 20 stay put.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to find out if Fran Duffy convinced me to change my 7-round mock draft, you are going to have to read that tomorrow on allphly.com. You are going to have to read I know you're definitely going to have to read Fran's final first-round mock draft tomorrow on allphly.com. I have the second part of my 30 thoughts coming out tomorrow on allphly.com. We have our show at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, 8 o'clock. We're going throughout the entire first round, the entire draft this weekend on YouTube. But I got to say this here. It's 3:06. You've killed it throughout this draft cycle. This is the last time the PHLY Eagles audience is going to see you before the draft commences. Anything you want to say, anything you want to get off your chest before they see you in real time when you're analyzing the picks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very excited for my first draft of being able to kind of cover the entire event publicly. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. I appreciate everybody that has joined as a diehard. So to check out all of our draft content. Hopefully, you're here to get all of our Eagles content, all of our Phillies coverage, our Flyers, our Sixers coverage, all of our coverage here with PHLY. So again, also the other aspect of this, you want to beat Dallas. We said at the top of the show, Dallas has overtaken us during this sale time. In terms of the number of diehards. So if you are not a diehard, you want that little extra motivation. We want to make sure we pull ahead of Dallas here in the standings. I went on with them earlier today, and they took a lot of joy in the fact that they overtook the PHLY in the last 24 hours. And so if you want to stick it back to them, make sure you pay that forward. But no, I do appreciate it, man. It's been a fun few months. I said this to you off air. I'm more excited about even what the next draft cycle will be, about what next fall is going to look like. It's going to be a lot of fun here moving forward here with PHLY.
That is such a great way to end the show. But I think we might have a super chat here. Is that right? I see it starred. If it's not a super chat, we're going to give credit to it for being a super chat because Idiot Sandwich is a big fan of the show. We appreciate all your contributions. This is starred. Fran, any take on Riley Mills? Who thought Riley Mills would be the final evaluation on the PHLY Eagles show before the draft commences? He hasn't heard anything about him until Matt Miller this AM.
Yeah, and I didn't see what Matt Miller said about him, but when you're looking at Riley Mills, this is a guy that was projecting to be like an early day 3 type of selection here in this draft, maybe 5th round, 6th round, something along those lines. Ended up getting hurt down the stretch for Notre Dame. He's a defensive tackle for Notre Dame, 6'5", 290 pounds. Freak list athlete for the last 2 years. He was actually number 10 for Bruce Feldman in the 2023 season. Fell down all the way down to number 27 last year. Didn't work out at the combine. Couldn't do anything during the pre-draft process because of that injury. I do think that impacts that draft slot, but he's been very productive over the course of the last few years on a per snap basis. I think when you're looking at Mills, I think that there's some front multiplicity there that would make him a good fit here with Vic Fangio and the Philadelphia Eagles. I just wish that he was a little bit better of a run defender. I think that is something that he will need to improve on moving forward into the NFL.
Well said. So I will close it out by saying that the period in our first year on PHLY when I was most proud of was draft weekend. Fran's edition was the biggest thing that's happened here. It's brought it to a different level this year. Our pre-draft stuff's been awesome because of Fran. But these next 3 days, it's going to be a market-setting type days, and we're going to lead the market in this. I'm thrilled to have Fran in studio on set. Don't miss it. Don't miss all our content. Thank you to Julia, who is working overtime, literally and figuratively here, to make everything happen. We appreciate that. For Fran Duffy, I'm Zach Berman. Bo will say, as always, we love you. He can be back tomorrow to say, I will say, I promise you, we'll be better tomorrow because we have about 5-6 hours to prove it to you. Thank you for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.